Hi guys, BuildZoid here, and today we're going to be doing another BuildZoid versus PC Partpicker video. So I was kind of excited for doing these for Z490, so this is the first of them. And today was just like, I didn't really set out with a goal to hit a specific price point. It was basically, I want to do like a nice 10700K build that isn't unnecessarily expensive in unnecessary ways. Ultimately, it did end up, this is like the nice version of what I ended up with. And yeah, it's $2,048, but Z490 isn't exactly like the thing is the CPU is $400, the GPU is $700. So more than half of the price is just the GPU and the CPU. And there are more, and I also went for like 32 gigs of RAM, and it's really nice RAM, and yeah, so still, this is like the thing is, if you wanted to make a more expensive version of this, you could drop the 2080 Super, swap in a 2080 Ti, and you'd have a $2,500 build just like that, and it would still, in my opinion, be a very, very nice build. So yeah, that's kind of that. You could swap out from the 2080 Super to a 2080 Ti, and then you get a $2,500 build because 2080 Ti's are ridiculously expensive. Or actually, more like 2300, 2400. You get the idea. 2080 Ti is very expensive. You could still get away with the same PSU. Like, though I would start strongly recommending that you go to like a 750 watt instead in that case. Anyway, yeah, so the build. I think most people don't really care about my suggestions for like the GPU, the case, the power supply, right? Well, I guess power supply maybe, but let's just talk through it. So 10700K, why? Because I wanted to do a 10700K based parts list. Arctic Liquid Freezer 240. I would have gone for the 360 or the 280 millimeter version, but new like PC Partpicker doesn't have prices for those right now. And also, I don't think they would fit in this case. So, I still don't do expensive cases, but yeah, like definitely that's one place where I feel like it would have been nice. Like a bigger cooler would be a good idea. Um, because the 10700K, like you can do 250, 300 watts of power consumption on one of these CPUs, but Gamers Nexus tested this AIO on the 3950X, and it was the best AIO they tested. So that's why it ended up in this parts list, because I don't test actual I don't test AIOs, I don't test heat sinks in general. It's like doing it properly is very difficult and tedious and like resource intensive. So I don't test coolers, but Gamers Nexus tests coolers, and they say this one's really, really good. I like their testing methodology. I approve of it. So yeah, there will be a link to their review of the cooler down in the description. There's going to be actually tons of information in the description. So go to the description, check out the Patreon, check out the Teespring links, and then go through the actual part that you care about, which is all the different parts. So there will be like part alternatives as well as reviews down in the description. So anyway, liquid freezer for the CPU cooling, because it's basically one of the best AIOs out there. And the Thermal Grizzly Conductonaut, like the 10700K, the IHS hasn't gotten any bigger. So it's a very high thermal, so the transfer of heat from the relatively small surface area of the IHS to the AIO is obviously limited by whatever thermal paste you're using. Thermal Grizzly Conductonaut is liquid metal. Liquid metal is kind of ridiculous. It could theoretically, if you're running 250 watts into the CPU, which is doable, or even 300 watts should still be doable. It's going to be kind of borderline though. The Conductonaut should be able to help you drop a few degrees compared to, standard thermal paste. So that's why it's in the list. This is also like the nice version of the build. It's not a necessity. It's just like, if I was actually building this, I would very strongly consider including the Conductonaut, because it doesn't really change the overall cost that much. And you could push the 10700K a little bit further with it. So, or at least make it run a bit cooler, which, you could get some less noise. Or if I was doing it, I'd just push the 10700K further. So that's kind of that. Then this version, we have the Gigabyte Z490 Vision G motherboard, just because I really like the rear I/O configuration of this board. So, like, this is great, right? We've got tons of USB ports. You've also got a PS2 if you're a Model M enthusiast. I have a friend who has a Model M, so I can totally understand why you would want a PS2 port. 2.5 gig Intel LAN, very nice 12-phase V-Core VRM. Great memory. Like, this is a 6-layer PCB. It's capable of running 5 gigahertz memory. Like, this is a really solid board. And I'm actually really surprised that it's only $200. So yeah, that right there is a amazing motherboard for the price. And so that's why it ended up in the parts list. As an alternative, you could go for the Z490 Aorus Elite, which costs basically the same amount of money. That's a $200 board as well. It changes the rear I/O significantly. You lose the PS2 port, lose the Type C. The 2.5 gig is now Realtek instead of Intel. So that's kind of the differences there. VRM is the same. Memory topology is the same. So memory overclocking is going to be the same. And I think both boards have Q flash. Like, basically, these two boards are two different colors of the same board. Like, the PCB is identical as far as I can tell. And yeah. But the last alternative motherboard is the MSI's Z490 Gaming Edge Wi-Fi. I would have also included the Tomahawk, but again, PC Partpicker still doesn't have prices for that one. So yeah, but that's definitely another solid option. So with the Gaming Edge Wi-Fi, you get Wi-Fi. You get 2.5 gig Realtek. You get a Type-C port, good amount of USB ports, PS2 port. Very solid VRM as well. This one should actually be this VRM should actually run a little bit cooler than Gigabyte's VRM. The memory on this board might be like the memory overclock. This is still a 6-layer PCB, but it's a very different memory topology from what Gigabyte is doing. So Gigabyte has full ground shields over all of their memory traces, whereas MSI is doing tabbed memory traces. This is the same topology that, say, the Z490 Unify from MSI has. So that's like a $300 board. And, on that board, you can easily do 4200, 4400 on 4 memory sticks. You can also go up to like 4600 on 2 memory sticks. So, and MSI advertises this with support up to 4800, but that would be one of those, like, Gigabyte's 5 gigahertz is kind of the same thing, where it's like, if you really want an easy way to get 5 gigahertz, you're going to need something like Hynix DJR or Micron rev.E, an IC that isn't really heavy on the memory controller, because Samsung BDI, it's fast, but it's old, and it's difficult to drive. So it just basically requires more power from the memory controller, which is why, like, it can do much tighter timings. It'll generally give you better performance if you optimize it, but it just doesn't, like, it's harder to clock that high. But yeah, so this is kind of an alternative. There should be minor, like, I wouldn't expect massive differences in the memory overclocking between this board and the Gigabyte boards. I've still not gotten around to testing out all the different, like, theoretically, the tabbed memory traces should have an advantage for 4DIMM configurations over the Gigabyte topology. But even this, you still should be doing at least 4,000 on 4DIMMs. So that's not really, like, or even 4133 should not be a problem on BDI with a 6-layer daisy chain topology. So I really wouldn't be like with Gigabyte's 6-layer daisy chain topology. So yeah, like, these are both very, very solid. Like, the memory overclocking is going to be slightly different between the boards, but I wouldn't really consider that a deciding factor here. It would mostly be, to me, the rear I/O and sort of the connectors that you get on the board. To which extent, I will point out the MSI board has more fan headers, as this does have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fan headers total, whereas the Vision G and the Elite have 5 total. So that's a kind of minor difference. Like, ultimately, both, like, either was going to work for this specific build, but if you had like if you wanted to add more fans or something, you might run out. Also, all 3 of these boards have debug LEDs, just basic ones, just tell you CPU, memory, boot media issues, VGA issues, that kind of thing. Yeah, so they're all, like, these are 3 very similar boards. So if you want to choose, like, if you're going to make a choice of these boards based on which one has which one you find the most attractive, that's totally fine. I don't see a problem with that. So yeah, pick your own poison, because these are all very, very similar. Like, the thing is, the motherboard vendors all pay the same prices for the parts, so there's not, like, if you're going to build a certain good board, there's not that much variety in terms of what you can put on the board, right? Like, in terms of your component selection. It's just like, well, if you're going to use a 60 amp smart power stage, it's going to cost this much, and there's not really much choice in that. So yeah, but these are all three great boards. So the MSI board is sort of in the cost optimized version of the build, which isn't really much cheaper, which is why I would like literally I would take this list and just swap out boards for whatever you want. Maybe swap out memory kits, swap out the GPU for maybe a higher end GPU or a lower end GPU. It really depends on what you're trying to do, but pairing a 10700K with something less than a 2080 Super seems kind of silly. Though you could drop the 10700K to a 10600K, and with the really fast memory, that should actually still work really, really well. There's a video from Gamers Nexus about memory performance effects on 10600K performance. I'll leave a link in the description for that as well. So yeah, the description is going to be super full of links. You should very much check it out. Anyway, this build includes a bunch of the 5-pack of fans from Arctic, and the reason why it includes this 5-pack of fans is like, well, let's say you want to improve, for one, as far as I know, the Fractal Design Focus G, one of the main issues with it is it doesn't include a lot of fans. Well, now you have more fans than you'll know what to do with, because you get 2 fans on the AIO, you get 5 more fans in the additional fan pack, which actually you could run out of fan headers with the Gigabyte boards in that case, you don't have to use every single fan in the fan pack, and buying 3 fans individually is just not really, it's not much cheaper, right? So yeah, that's why I went for the 5-pack. The cool thing with the 5-pack of fans is that, one, you can really tweak the airflow inside your case. You could potentially, if you get creative with zip ties, you can zip tie a fan to point directly at your memory, which if you're going to be pushing the Samsung B-die kits that I've gone through for these builds, yeah, you really want that. Like, it helps, it'll help your memory overclocking quite a bit. So that's kind of the justification for the fan pack. And the sort of cost optimized version, well, this doesn't have the fan pack. So also, if you're considering like, do I go Conductonaut or fan pack, get the fan pack. Like, fresh air is more like being able to feed fresh air into your radiator is far more important than being able to get heat into your radiator, right? If your radiator is choked for fresh air, then the fact that you're shoving a bunch of heat into it very, very quickly doesn't do anything, because the heat has a hard time getting out of the loop, not into it. Right? So that's kind of the thing. Like, you want to first optimize your water to air exchange, and then once your water to air exchange is maxed out, well, then you want to optimize your CPU to water exchange of heat, right? Which this optimizes CPU to water temperatures, this optimizes water to air temperatures. Similarly, this optimizes like air, memory to air temperatures, VRM to air temperatures, that kind of thing. So that's why you want the fan pack. Anyway, 650 watt Supernova G3. Right now, PSU prices are absolutely ridiculous. And this is a good power supply, has plenty of power for this configuration right here. It might be a little bit borderline if you were pushing maxing out an overclock on a 2080 Ti, especially if you're like me and you like disabling power limits. 2080 Ti's can get extremely power hungry very, very quickly. So in that case, yeah, the 650, it would still work, especially this one, because this one has the main issue with the G3 series from the reviews. There will be a review there will be a review of the power supply in the description as well. Obviously, I don't review power supplies. It's just a reviewer I respect a lot when it comes to power supply reviews. So yeah, there's going to be a link to his review down in the description below as well. Anyway, but that power supply, the main complaint for that PSU is it actually has a really high overpower protection. So if you go a little bit over the 650 watt rating, it won't shut down, which not really you shouldn't be doing that long-term to your power supply, but if you had a sudden peak load that isn't sustained, it means your system won't randomly black screen if you have if the GPU and CPU suddenly max out at the same time, which is pretty unlikely. That would be the equivalent of running Prime 95 and Furmark at the same time. Generally doesn't happen, right? Like, normally if your CPU is getting hammered, your GPU is going to be isn't going to be under as much load as if you're not going to have both maxed out at the same time unless you're doing something very synthetic. So that's not a huge concern. And yeah, a 2080 Ti should still fit on the 650, even if you do silly things to the power limit. The SSD is my favorite placeholder SSD. It just doesn't like, sure, it's not the most cost-effective 1 TB SSD, but it doesn't do anything wrong. The performance is good. It's not a bad SSD. I'm not really interested in spending a bunch of time. Like, if you know of a better SSD that you'd prefer to use, go for it. Especially if it's cheaper, go for it. Or if it's more expensive, go for it. I don't care particularly, right? This is just my suggestion of like, this SSD doesn't do anything extremely wrong. There's going to be a review of that SSD as well in the description. So yeah, I'm basically, I'm adding my sources to my for my parts decisions here. The Patriot Viper Steels, I mean, you've seen these on this channel a lot. I love them. They're great. They're amazing. I have 4 sticks. They're absolute every single like my first kit is actually stronger than my second kit, but the difference between them is not like it's not a massive difference. And at normal voltages, and the difference is mostly at like ridiculous voltages. Like my second kit doesn't play with 2 volts quite as well as my first kit does. But at normal voltages, these 2 kits are absolutely incredible. So, and the thing is, they're $120 each, which is just insane that they're so cheap, considering how good they are. And in this configuration, there is 2 of them because dual rank gives you better performance than single rank, especially if you're just pushing 1.5 volts. If you're running like ridiculous voltages, then single rank actually allows you to push even lower timings at higher frequencies, and you can sort of make up for the per clock deficiency compared to dual rank. But if you're at 1.5 volts, you're probably not going to be like, you're not going to be able to necessarily take advantage of that. Also, if you're dailying your system, you might want to have I run out of 16 gigs of RAM regularly on my daily system. So, like, I don't know what you do. Maybe if you literally only game and you're not terrible with, like I leave photo editing programs open in the background while playing games, and sometimes with multiple very high-res images, right? So that doesn't really do good things to your memory. But if you don't do that kind of thing, though I've also left games running in the background of other games, so I'm pretty terrible about remembering to close things. So I like having a lot of RAM. It also doesn't help that I, play games that aren't exactly memory efficient. So I like to have a lot of RAM in my daily system, and a lot, I mean 32 gigs, not like 64. That's ridiculous. But yeah, 32 gigs also has just a per clock advantage because it's dual rank, and so that's why that's there. If you want to save $120 here, sure, drop one of the kits, but still, I would keep like if you don't only want to run 16 gigs, I would still go for these kits. There are memory alternatives. So the memory alternatives, there's a lot of them. Viper Steel's 4133, still Samsung B-die, should overclock amazing. These are 99 right now. They're $99, which is or $100. Which is ridiculous. So you can save $40, basically get the same memory performance. Like, why the hell not, right? These are like, I don't think this price is gonna last. So if that price goes up, then these are an alternative. And there's more alternatives going to be down in the description. If you don't like the look of the Patriots, there's also G.skill flares. Now, these you're going to have to manually clock up yourself, and these are surprisingly cheap. Normally, G.skill's 2x8 Samsung B-die kits are really overpriced, or at least in my opinion, they're really overpriced compared to the Patriots, because the Patriots, I don't get it. How are they selling B-die for this price? But G.skill doesn't sell B-die that cheap normally. This is an anomaly. And at this price, this is great. This is absolutely amazing. So if you don't like the Patriots for their looks, well, you can get something from G.skill that looks very similar to the Patriots. So yeah, this is 3200 CL14, and it's B-die. So if you shove 1.5 volts into it, it should clock very well. Though these, as far as I know, are generally on an A. Like, I'm not like, G.skill's been recently swapping a lot of their kits from A0 PCBs to A2 PCBs. I'm not sure if they've done that with the flares yet. So these might still be on A0. The main downside to A0 PCBs is that they don't tend to clock as high. It's not really a big deal because you can still go up to like 4400 megahertz just fine. It's just that if you wanted to go to like 4600, 4800, 5 gigahertz, you're probably not going to get past 4600. Generally, A0, the PCB layout just doesn't do well with really, really high frequencies like over 4600. Or even over 4400 if you're unlucky. I have an A0 kit that's actually 4600 by spec. So they can clock high, it's just generally they don't. most people think 4000 megahertz is a high memory speed. To me, that's kind of like, nah, that's relaxed B-die settings, you know? If high speed is like 4400 and up. So yeah, these won't necessarily go above 4400, but they're still very solid. It's B-die, and at 4400, you know, with say CL18 and tightened up sub timings, or even CL17, depends on your luck, right? Silicon lottery, all that. These are still going to be a very, very solid option. Now, what if you want to run 2 sticks instead of 4 sticks, right? Because so far I've just been putting together two 16 gig sticks for 32. If you just want to write out of the box 32 gig stick kit, this is an alternative. It costs about the same. It's 3200 CL14. These are probably going to be kind of fiddly with to tune. So that's kind of the main concern with these is yeah, these might, like, I'd expect these to probably go up to like 4266. Definitely with the MSI motherboard, these should go up to like 4266. More than that is going to be difficult. Gigabyte motherboard, I'm not sure yet. But you might be able to go past that, you might not. Still, you should be able to go at least over 4000, and it's B-die, so the timings are going to be really tight, so the performance per clock is going to be really, really good. Then we have the last G.skill alternative. This is a 3600 CL16 kit of B-die. It's RGB as well, you know. A lot of people, I think a lot of, like, I've had people ask me, like, Bill, could you actually include some RGB memory? And it's like, no, because you pay $20 for memory that isn't any faster. And in my opinion, that's completely stupid. But here, yeah, you're paying $20 for memory that isn't really any faster. Though this does have a slightly more aggressive XMP out of the box. It's 3600 CL16. I still wouldn't expect this to clock any better than the 3200 CL14s, just because the main issue with the 16 gig DIMMs is the actual motherboard support, not what's on the DIMMs. So, like, not the DIMMs themselves. Like, that's not really a concern. It's mostly down to the motherboard being able to handle them. But yeah, so these are an alternative if you want RGB and you want B-die and you want 32 gigs of RAM. I didn't list any 8 gig RGB sticks because 8 gig RGB sticks are overpriced horribly. So anyway, and then last memory alternatives, we've got Teamgroup. This is still B-die. Judging, like, I suspected that considering how loose this is a 3733 182222 bin. I was suspecting that Teamgroup would eventually switch these to like CJR or DJR or Micron or something other than B-die, because B-die is generally kind of expensive. But judging by this 23-day-old comment, it's still B-die and it's still good. So yeah, knock yourself out. Get a set of these if you don't like the look of everything. Like, honestly, most of these kits are basically gray, black, like gray or black rectangles. I've kind of realized. So yeah, not a lot of variety in terms of looks here, but yeah, if you don't like the Patriots for whatever reason, or the Patriots aren't available, they're too expensive, these are an alternative. And also these are an alternative, and there's more alternatives down in the description below for both like Patriot, G.skill, and Teamgroup. And yeah, so these are B-die. These are 4300, 18, 20, 20. So this is a hard B-die bin. You can't really bin other memory chips to do this. And this is the most expensive of the B-die kits, and I'm just like, I wouldn't necessarily, like, I wouldn't get this unless it's cheaper than, like, these. Which most, or no, not these, the 4400s, right? The 4400s are normally $120-ish, and even in the, like, I got I'm in the UK, so I actually got my 4400s for £120 each. And it's just like each kit, and it's just great. Like, I love these things. These are amazing memory. But sometimes in the UK, we actually get Teamgroup kits for cheaper than the Patriots. And yeah, in that case, you know, consider the Teamgroup kits instead. Yeah, so this is a solid option. Though I don't think we actually have this in the UK, like this speed bin. I think we have we don't even have the 4133. We have like a 4000 at best, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, yeah, so this is another alternative for your memory. And then we get to the crucial Micron rev.E sticks. And these are, like, the thing is, these can clock high. Yeah, this is the 3000 kit, but you can clock these really high. I've done over 4000 megahertz on them just fine. In fact, I was trying very hard to stabilize 4333 in a, like, 96 gig memory configuration. Wasn't working out. So eventually I gave up on that. But individually, these sticks can go well over 4000 or like one kit of these can easily go over 4000 megahertz. That is absolutely no problem. So yeah, these are sort of your budget 16 gig memory option. You could run them dual rank, like you could run 2 sets of this for dual rank to get a, per clock performance advantage, because the real problem with Micron rev.E is that while it does clock really high, the subtimings tend to kind of suck. So the performance per clock isn't great. So like a Micron rev.E kit doing 4266 is not equivalent to a well set up set of B-die doing 4266. Like the B-die kit is going to be faster. So also these are kind of more fiddly to like well, it depends. Like these can be more annoying to stability test in my experience. Like if you're tightening up all the subtimings, these tend to tighten, like you can tighten the subtimings really low and still finish benchmarks, but you can't finish stress tests, which is annoying. Whereas with B-die, I mean, you can do the same thing, but B-die tighten, like the barrier between too tight for stress test and too tight for benchmarks is smaller than with Micron rev.E, at least in my experience. So, but yeah, like these are $70, so it's a really solid option. And then Crucial also has a 2x16 3000 option, which is 150. These clock the same. Like literally these can clock the same. The main thing is these are 16 gig DIMMs, so the support for them is going to be very dependent on the motherboard. With MSI, I basically 4266 should be no problem. Not sure about Gigabyte yet, but I'd assume they should be like the Gigabyte's all in a daisy chain that I think they already used on like AMD. Like I'm pretty sure it's a very similar daisy chain to what they use on the X570 boards, so they should have it dialed in quite well in terms of support for various memory kits at this point. So yeah, that's kind of it. That's the builds. Is like, so this is the really nice version, right? Here's your motherboard options. Then there's going to be more memory options down in the description. 650 watt power supply because you don't really need more, and it's a gold. It's a nice power supply, good voltage regulation, everything like that. Extra fans for extra cooling, especially if you're running the B-die. Like if you want to run B-die very fast, you really want the extra fans. Like they help. Like B-die is very temperature sensitive, and the funny thing is the temperature sensitivity of B-die is all over the place. Like there are some kits that will be perfectly stable at 1.5 volts, aggressive settings, 60 degrees. Like you can literally, like I've literally done that test where I'd take a hairdryer, run the memory sticks up to 60 degrees with the hairdryer, and they're fine. They're completely stable. It's not a problem. And then I have other kits where they go over like 45 degrees and they immediately start puking out errors. And there's not really any way to sort for that. Like it's just kind of like, as far as I can tell, it's basically random. There are some kits where I suspect the memory vendors are actually selecting for higher temperature tolerance, but those kits also tend to cost way more. And PATRIOT, as far as I can tell, doesn't bother. Like their kits are just like they're kind of all over the place. So yeah, but still like the thing is just like if the memory is erroring, then just you need more airflow essentially. Or you need to loosen up the settings. That's the other option. So yeah, that's the builds. So here's the MSI remix of the same thing. Well, more cost optimized, but literally like you could literally just swap the board here and I'd still be completely fine with it. I didn't like the reason why the MSI board is the cost optimized list here is mostly because it's slightly cheaper. So I was like because normally this board, like, and it's on sale right now, right? Like that's a rebate right there. So without the rebate, actually, it doesn't matter which board. Like I could have done this list with the Gigabyte board. I'm basically my concern here is I'm not biased towards Gigabyte here. Like either board is completely like any of the 3 boards I went for, like chose, is fine. I just kind of like this one the best in terms of the rear I/O, but like if you like the MSI board more, get the MSI board. If you like this one, get this one. If you like this one, get this one. I don't care. Like they're all equivalent essentially to me. Yeah, that's the builds. That's it. And yeah, you could literally just swap out the 2080 Super with a 2080 Ti if you wanted to do that. So yeah, that's it for the video. Hopefully you liked it. So yeah, like, share, subscribe, leave any comments, questions, suggestions down in the comment section below. I very heavily recommend you check the description because that's where there's extra part options available, like other memory kits, And that's actually most of it. It's just other memory kits. Yeah, literally just other memory kits. The parts lists are there as well. And then there's a bunch of like review, like there's also the reviews for the various choices, like my choice of GPU, power supply, and SSD. So there's reviews for those because they need justification, right? I don't test GPUs, I don't test SSDs, I don't test power supplies, so I rely on reviews from from other people for that. So yeah, that's kind of it. Check out oh right, if you'd like to support what I do here with actually hardcore overclocking. Almost forgot to be a shill for myself. Man, I'm bad at this. I have a Patreon. There's a link to it in the description as well. And then there's the AHOC Teespring store where, you can buy shirts, stickers, posters, the usual YouTuber merch. There's a link to that in the description as well. So yeah, if you'd like to support the channel, either directly through the Patreon or by buying some merch, links in the description. Yay, there. Video's done. I don't know why I'm in such a good mood. It's just, well, no, like this is a cool parts list. Like this was fun to put together because it's like cool memory, cool motherboards, cool build. Honestly, though, I would probably go for like a crazy custom loop that wouldn't even fit inside the case, so the radiator would just be mounted on top. Because I don't really care how it looks. It's just like more cooling, more better. If it looks ugly, that's fine. I'll actually hit the stop button now. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.